work?
Live.
Cool.
100%.
Okay, do you want to go?
Oh, so people watching.
Yeah. So
watching at
people
home.
watching online as well. Okay, well, hi, welcome.
Hi.
Thanks for coming. This is the information evening. Like, technically everything I'm going to say is for next year, so like next September, but it mostly probably applies to the year after, which is obviously the year that Caroline and you would go for BD. Also, like, there are other people interested, just so you know, not the only people. We've had like groups of 2 in like Asher Fingerhut, who you probably know. His year there were only 2 of them. Our year there were 9, so it really varies in size. This year there are 4. Hopefully we'll speak to them later. So basically the presentation is just like an outline of the programme, and then Miriam's an ex-Shnatty from my year, and she'll be able to answer questions / talk about her experience a bit, and then like we can just chat or whatever you guys want, basically. Sure. So it doesn't work. Okay, I don't think I need to do what is LJY-Netzer. You probably know already. Usually 300 members aged 8 to 25. So what is Netzer? Okay, so Netzer is like the parent movement of LJY, which means like the second part of our name. I don't think many people know like what that means. So they're a worldwide organisation based in Jerusalem. So their offices are where you spend quite a lot of your time on Shnat. Like the flat where you would live if you did Etgar is where their offices are, and it's like an amazing location. So it's really cool. You also they also would have visited it on Israel tour. Yeah, so they're an international Zionist youth movement. There are branches kind of all over the world. Like Panama's probably the weirdest place. Like there are 2 here. Obviously RSY is another branch. And participants from all over the world come together. So basically we share the programme with RSY. So that means from the UK, there are normally a group between like 15 and 25. Being a bigger movement, they get a lot more people. So this year they had 19, we had 4. But at the beginning it's a bit weird, and then like within like 2 weeks you just don't care who's from what movement. So yeah, so it's like a nice mix. So this is probably a group from several years ago now when they just arrived. People also come from Australia, South Africa, but you have a bit of a different schedule to them, so you need like half a year. I'll talk about that later. Okay, why take a gap year? Just a bit of a spiel about and people watching online why I should take a gap year. Okay, so like having a break before university, or before work, or just before like life generally. It was like really beneficial to both of us, I think, and it's just like a really good time in your life to take a year out. I'm not sure when else there's such an obvious time. I think something that gets missed off a lot about Shnat is like it can develop your skills for employment and like independent living. Like it was much easier for us to move out of home after we spent a year cooking, cleaning for ourselves than it is just go straight from home. Definitely a chance to meet new people, like basically all my friends now. And like I'm still in touch with people from like South Africa and Spain, and like we've got friends from Australia that come, so it doesn't, like 4 or 5 years down the line, connections don't go away. Yeah, and a chance to do something different. So there's lots of cringy pictures of scientists. Okay, what is Shnat-Netzer? Okay, so Shnat is, apologies, you probably know some of this information. I'm not sure how many people watching know this information. Right, so it's an 8-month gap year programme in Israel. You're in Israel for the whole 8 months. Give or take, it's probably 8.5 months, but that's how we sell it, so people don't say, oh, I wish it would, get confused. Okay, so it's like the Netzer year, so you kind of live out the LJY-Netzer ideology, and it's just like a really ideological experience. It combines Hadraha, so like leading, Jewish learning, Hebrew, like depending on your willingness, you can learn a lot of Hebrew. Other people don't, but it's like a really great opportunity. I wish I'd tried harder. Volunteering, communal living, and travel. Another thing I think is a misconception is like, oh, a whole year in Israel, but you didn't get to go to a full moon party. But it's like, actually, we saw so much. There's opportunity to travel like elsewhere, like some of our group went to Egypt, Jordan, like I went to Italy randomly for like a weekend. So it's not such I think a lot of people don't want to do it because they're a bit scared of spending a year in Israel. And it's also an opportunity to immerse yourself in Israeli culture. So like, depending on what people are thinking, it's kind of makes a lot of people think about maybe moving there for some period of time, or like spending a long time there in their life. So I'll let you probably read this in your own time. This is just a bit of the mission statement. I'm going too fast if someone else is going to come, but okay. The programme in a nutshell. Just going to make that.
Oh, it's that in the presentation.
Yeah, I probably will. It's a bit blurry. Okay. It's working. Okay. So you have an orientation seminar in October, which is one weekend basically where you meet the RSY people. It's normally in London. Like, it's not really an example of what Shnat is like. It's just a bit more about the programme. Like, it's normally a month before. Then you have an orientation seminar in Jerusalem, which is a week. So that's like the first week you get to Israel, you stay in a hostel, you have kind of different speakers come, tell you about how your year is going to be. Then you have group experience, which is basically, a month to 6 weeks on Kibbutz Lotan at the moment, which is the like progressive kibbutz in the south.
Well, that's the one they went on already.
Yes, it's one they went on tour. It's quite famous. Like, has a lot of like we have a lot of good links there.
Place to really.
Yeah, we went on Lotan, and the people since it's moved, there's been a lot more good feedback. So that's kind of compromise of like living in the mud domes, like the eco village, which is really like a cool experience. Learning Hebrew, like volunteering on all different parts of the kibbutz, and like going on trips once a week. So a lot of hikes, like go to a lap for the day. Then that ends. So that's from October to November. So they've just this weekend moved to options, which is basically you have a choice. At the moment, you have a choice of two. There's potential for there to be a third option. At the moment, the choice is to stay on kibbutz. So you can stay on Lotan, which is what 3 out of the 4 this year have chosen to do. So you kind of become more of the kibbutz, like more part of the kibbutz. You volunteer, like, so the options this year were like gardening, working with the cows, which is more fun than it sounds, like cooking. And you have a host family who've lived on the kibbutz their whole life, and they really take you in. That's like I think it's a really like unique experience. On our year, 2 people did it out of like 24, which wasn't many, but they had a really different experience because they actually met like Israelis and kind of integrated into a community that we didn't experience. The other option is Carmiel. So that's like a small city in the north, about the size of like Cambridge, a bit smaller. And you volunteer and you live in a house. So it's a bit more like independent living together. You just live in a house like the 20 of you or the 15 of you. And you can choose from like a huge range of options volunteering, which we'll talk about later. Right, that ends in February. Then the Southern Hemisphere arrive. So Australians and South Africans come, and they start their Shnat then. Then you go into the Jerusalem period, which is like 4 months of either Etgar or Machon. So I don't know if you guys know anything about either of them. Okay, so we'll go into more detail later, but basically Etgar, you live in the Netzer flat, which is like a flat specifically, sleeps like 25 people, and it's in Jerusalem, and it's all within that group. So you have lessons, but it's just about kind of Netzer, and like it's the same group of people. I think it's probably not more intense, but it's like a smaller, more communal environment. Or Machon, which is a bit more like university, like first year of uni. You're in halls, you live with people from all over the world. In our like group, there were like 85. And that's kind of cross-communal. So we had friends that were religious and friends that were more left-wing than we are, and it's like a much more wide program. So that's the potential to meet like people from all over the world, not just from Netzer. That ends in June, which seems far away at the moment for the Shnatties, but really isn't. And then you have a closing seminar of like 5 days of crying and hoping that you don't ever have to go home. And then it ends. So like that's the program as it is now. It might change, but also kind of this basic structure hasn't for a while since it changed for our year. So right, group experience, which I talked about a bit, I'll just go over. So it's 1 month living in the desert. This is, I mean, you can't tell much from this picture, but it's like a mud hut. Lotan very into like building things out of recyclable materials. So you learn Hebrew. You have Hebrew lessons, like lessons on Zionism, lessons about Israeli culture. you have one leader that's with your group that whole month. They might be from, ours was Israeli, they could be from anywhere in the world. You run activities for each other, which is nice, like developing leadership skills. So you do some volunteering every week. We worked in the date field, which is like tough manual labour. You could work, like the bus stand is like the eco village, but you could do, I think they do every week at the moment they're doing a different volunteering option because the group basically said we don't want to do the same thing every week. So so it's very like changeable depending on the feedback for the programme. Okay, then the trips, which I think will probably be my favourite part because you just get to like go out a really incredible place to live and like see different places and do hikes, and it's kind of like if the Israel tour stuff had more oomph. Yeah, and then Shabbatot, so you kind of hang out with the kibbutz, like at weekends we all travelled everywhere, but it kind of depends on what people want a lot of the time. This year I think they just relaxed and like went to the pub, which is nothing wrong with that. Okay, so options is the next part. So that takes you up to the end of about now, November. Then you have options. So you can either choose to stay on Natan, as I said. At the moment they have a maximum of 10 Shnatties, so it's like a really small group, but it's like becomes a bit of a family. So the volunteering options, as I said, like gardening and like taking tour groups around the ecological bit of the kibbutz, date fields, milking cows, which one of our friends did and like really enjoyed. I think it's an acquired taste, but it's fun. Like a couple of Shnatties did like cheese making, and the kitchens. So you kind of go and you work like weird shifts, but then you have a lot of free time. Like they have every afternoon off at the moment just to like relax and basically have fun, which is really nice. And then you have a host family. So they're people, sometimes they're people whose kids came on like an LJY camp. So they know a bit about youth movement and they like have you out for dinner, and it's just like a good opportunity to get to know Israelis like properly, because I think a lot of Shnat you spend with people from like Hendon and they're like amazing, but it's, yeah. And then again, you have free weekends. So what happened in our year was basically all of us, we all went to visit the people that lived at Lotan, so it was really nice, and like, I don't know, it just felt like a holiday every weekend basically, which is great. Okay, Carmiel is what we both did. It's a city in the north of Israel. As us, all of these are our year group. That the pictures had most access to. So you live in a house. We lived in a smallish house with 20 people. Cook for yourselves, you clean for yourselves, and you budget, and it's like really independent compared to anything I'd ever done personally at that age. You have a host family. So our host family were like really nice. They took us on day trips, and they're from the city, and they just kind of like adopt you as their own. They just like, it's like really nice and welcoming, and again it's a chance to get to know real Israelis. We're still like in touch with our host sister. Right, so you go on trips again every week, but they're around the northern part of Israel, and they're like, just, I don't know, they're like really interesting, so they're very topical. So we did quite a lot about like, there was an Arab village across the road from us, so we taught English at the school, and we learned kind of, it was like for me probably the best part of this part of the programme. So there's quite an active progressive community in Carmiel, and they have like a lot of kids, and we did a lot of Hadraha stuff with them. So it's like you're coming into a community that's already formed, but it's like a big part that they have Shnattis come every year, and it means a lot to them to have people like come and run things. And also they find English people just really exciting. They're like, oh my god, and it's just crazy. Like you can be just not a good leader, and they're like, you're so great. So that's fun. And then yeah, youth free weekends. So we went away most weekends and like explored, like, it's amazing in a country so small how much there is to do. You basically feel like a weekend, yeah, every week with a different like trip, which was great. Okay, this is a new part of Carmiel. Basically the track, so with volunteering it used to be you just kind of said what you were interested in, then you got given something. So now it's been changed to like, you have like specific placements depending on what you're interested in. So there's like education, which is teaching, which we did in schools. We taught in art school, which was a really amazing experience, and in like an Israeli school. There's a sports track, so one of our friends was like really interested in teaching football and like running classes, and there's like a lot of demand for that. I think like Israelis are crazy about basketball and football. So yeah, so that's a new one. Healthy living is an option to work in ambulances. It's like a paramedic. With Mug and Dom, who are like the Red Cross but Jewish. There's a lot of training involved in that one, and it's a huge commitment. But if you're interested in medicine, it's probably the best one. Arts, so it's kind of similar to teaching, but music, more music and writing. Go Green, which is like kind of more what you would have been doing on Town. So it's about like ecology and I don't know, like green projects, I guess. So it's like our friend worked like a garden centre. And then Down to Earth, which potentially might be another option in the future, which is like survival skills. So it's basically like 2 months of hiking and extreme sports and like camping. So it's quite an acquired taste. But it's also like, I don't know, we have friends that did something similar and they had an incredible time. It wasn't personally my street. And they're always looking to include more options, so like volunteering for a week at different places, and just like generally there's such a variety of things to do. So like this is just an example of how it can actually be useful to you in the future. It's not just volunteering. Okay, Jerusalem. So that's until the end of February. Then you move on. So the Jerusalem period is kind of, I think, the bit that people probably know the most about in relation to Shnat. So Etgar is. This is the view from the Netzer van, pretty much. So it's like an incredible view just outside of the old city. We're like right in town. Couldn't have a better location. Like you never need to take buses unless you're leaving. So you live in the Netzer flat, which is like, it's kind of like a historic home of Schnatties, and you go and you see like the Movemaker's names carved into the bed. And it's kind of like it's got like a weird aura, but it's really nice. And you live, so there's like 20 of you, and you cook together. You have lessons, but they're all within kind of the same building with the same like setup. So you'd have Madjuhim. Anna Posner, who's one of our old workers, was the Etgar Madjuha and is at the moment. And it's like really great for the LJY people to have someone who understands what it's like to be a really small youth movement on a big programme. You work on local projects, so again, it's volunteering, it's kind of what you want to do. Everyone did a whole range of things. There's a lot more options to do. Say you found something you were like, this is really cool, I want to work here. I think it's much easier for them to organise that for you. And yeah, you take part in seminars. So you have seminars about like, they did one about the IDF and they went to visit an army base. They did one about like the Druze community and they went to stay in like, I don't know, tents. And so I think it's much more like immersive learning, like it's experiential. And then you have Northern and Southern Teal, which are like 2 hikes for 5 days, one to the north, one to the south. By that time, you've probably been to most of the places, but it's still really fun. Like you camp and you carry your own like water, and like it's challenging for a lot of people, but also bonds you a lot as a group. So the alternative to Etgar is Mahon. Mahon's a program that's been running like as long as the state of Israel has been in existence, as far as I'm aware. It's a cross-communal leadership program, which means anyone can do it. So some people might just go for 4 months to do that, not part of the gap year program. Live with people from different youth movements you have never heard of in your whole life, especially age 18, like people we never knew existed. It's really cool. So at the moment we do it with the Southern Hemisphere, which means we live with about 70 Australians, all from Melbourne, and like 10 South Africans. And it's just like really interesting to get to know. Like I had no idea there were Jews in South Africa until I lived with them. And it's like an amazing experience. You sleep in dormitories and you have your meals provided. So it's, if you're not into cooking and doing things like that for yourself, it's probably a better option. It's all just there for you. It's quite intense learning. So you learn about like Hadraha, like leadership, Jewish history, Hebrew, again, Zionism. But the teachers are like amazing and they cater to a lot of styles of learning. So if you're like, I don't want to hold a pen for like 4 months, then you can do all classes that are very like experiential. And it's like, that is a great way of learning. It's so different to school. It's so different to anything else you'll ever do. We did a weekly volunteering placement. So I did Buddy a Granny, where it was like, we went and had like tea with an Israeli old person every week. And it was like really fun and like interesting to get to know their stories as well. But there was like a whole host of things to do. And then we have a trip every week, which again are like amazing. And also they're quite like they go quite out there with what they do because they have so many connections. So the group size, we had about 80. I think it varies from like 60 to 100, where it sounds like loads, but you get to know everyone really quickly. Right, other features of Shnat. So weekends, probably the best part of the whole of Shnat. Every weekend was like, I don't know, like on Facebook or via text, like all our friends would be like, okay, we're going to the Dead Sea, we're going to Tel Aviv for a party, we're going to, and you just choose what you want to do and you go. Travel's incredibly cheap. And it's just like, for me, they were the best part. I felt like by the end, I feel like I know Israel really well. Hofesh, so you have 2 holidays, one in winter and one in spring. In winter tends to be when family and friends visit. So obviously Christmas is kind of not a big deal there, but it's quite nice. Everyone just goes to the beach on Christmas Day. But Hanukkah's really fun. So winter, I think people tend to do with their families, or like a couple of our friends just decided to like travel around the north together. It's only about a week. Yeah, it's about a week, but it feels really long. Spring is when all the like the festivals are. So one of the festivals we went to, which is this one called Zorba, it's developed a bit of a reputation of like the hippie LJY festival, but it's like just really fun and amazing and like the weirdest week of your life, but probably the best. It's like in the desert. It's kind of like Burning Man festival, if you know anything about that. It's like in the desert and there's weird music and there's really cool food and it's just like a really unique experience. Masar, they run kind of like, they're a big funder to all the Israel programs. We'll talk about them later. But they run like big events, so they'll bring all the gap year people in Israel together, which is like hundreds of people for like one day. So they do stuff. Seminars, which happen throughout the year. So obviously opening, closing seminar, very, very different experiences. One, you're just like, what am I doing? And the other one, you're like, never want to leave. And then experiential educational seminars. So like we didn't have them, but the feedback on them has been like incredible, that they've kind of introduced them for everyone to take part in. And at the this year they're doing a trip with Yachad, who are like pro-Israel, pro-peace organisation, which is like 4 or 5 days we've just done the trip, and it's amazing, quite overwhelming. And you go to the West Bank and you visit like different communities and you find out about settlements, and it's just like a fascinating look at the conflict. That's quite late into Shnat because it takes a lot of preparation. Right, why Shnat-Netzer? So, I don't know like what people watching and what you guys have like heard or been told and like been persuaded about. Obviously like we can come up with a whole host of reasons to go, I guess. So like ideologically you're like, it's probably the only time in my life I felt like I've actually learned through just like my experience and through like doing. And you don't really realise till you come back how much I think it matures you. You learn a lot about Israel, and like living there is the best way to understand what's going on there and just to experience it. And like you advance your Jewish identity a lot. You do make a difference. So another thing is a lot of people say, oh, I want to go and volunteer and make sure like my gap year isn't kind of, you know, just like a hedonistic time in Thailand. I think Shnat does allow you to make an impact on other people through your volunteering. It's really, and then yeah, LJY-Netzer leadership. So for a lot of, hopefully, some people it seems like the next step. Equally, like people start on Shnat, which might seem weird, but I think it's a great thing about the program. So one of our friends just was from Stoke-on-Trent and like didn't really know anything about Judaism, came on Shnat, and like now he's moving work for RSY. So it's really unusual that we get people, but there's a chance that someone new might just come and say, I want to do a gap year in Israel. Okay, personal. So like the main thing to emphasize is like the only time in your life you can ever go, ever. It's not like a program that's available to anyone who isn't that age group. Or that like some of our friends went straight on to work after it. So it's like, it's not like, oh, a gap year full of people doing the same thing. It really is a completely varied. Like one of the girls who came back just made Aliyah like straight away, which is like another option afterwards. Lifelong friendships. I think the hardest thing to explain about the program is that the people are the best thing about it. They just like become your family. And yeah, you just make like the best friends ever from all over the world just by living together. New skills, so it like definitely prepares you for university and for work, or just for like being a better person, being more of an adult, and yeah, self-development and understanding. It really is like it definitely is a journey. Okay, again, I think you can probably, maybe I will read these out in case people watching comments. Okay, so these are just comments on like past participants, LJY participants. So it says, if Shnat taught me one thing, it was what it meant to be part of a community. Shnat-Netzer is a community like no other. You find a new family, you learn to be accepted for who you are without having to change yourself, and you learn to love yourself for this. And then this is a parent's view. When my son went on Shnat, I was apprehensive as to what experiences he'd have. However, I'd soon come to realise that Shnat was the best experience for him aged 18. He gained skills that helped him to excel at university, and like it made him more prepared for independent living. So that's just what past people have said. It is worth mentioning, like, obviously it's a huge decision, and obviously like people are like, I think most people watching this or present in this room are like at least a year away from it, so there are so many people to speak to about it and about making the right decision. Like, we can put you in touch with anyone from really old moving workers to people that just came back now, and they are the best people to talk to. Right, so cost and funding, this is the less exciting part of the presentation. So firstly, before we talk about the cost of the programme, we are an inclusive youth movement, so we would never ever want anyone to go, not like, we wouldn't want money to stop anyone going. Money is what stops people, I think, like at the first stage. So it's like really worth emphasising that if you want to go, we will make it happen. The cost of the programme at the moment is £12,000, which is a lot, but there's like a huge amount of funding available from lots of different sources, and I'll break it down shortly. So these are just some places you can apply to for funding, like synagogues. I applied to my synagogue. Like Masar, who fund all of the Israel programs, LJY-Netzer, who hopefully have heard of, and like independent funds. There's a lot of like rich Jewish people who just want you to go to Israel, and weirdly they'll just give you money for it. Everyone receives like bursary of $1,000, which means that brings the price down already from that scary figure to more like 11,500. Right, so you can apply for funding, so regardless of their financial situation, and then you can apply for more, like with supported documentation. So it's worth basically us mentioning that like people got up to like £6,000 to £8,000 bursaries this year, which significantly reduces the cost. Like, so you're paying basically like $2,000. Obviously, that's dependent on your financial circumstances, but I think that's what people forget is available. We're like 100% committed to helping people find funds. So basically, I made the decision to go about a year, like just after Kayet, so about a year before. And I was like, how? My parents said, we're not giving you any money. So it's like, how am I going to fund this? So I saved from my job. I applied to like 30 different funds, and like it worked out. Like I did pay some, but I didn't pay anywhere near the full figure. And I think a lot of people on our channel had that experience of thinking it's prohibitive, kind of the money side, but thinking, okay, do you know what, I want to go, I'm going to make it happen. Also, the people that are currently in Israel are like really easy to speak to as well. They've like all tried really hard. Some of them still sorting out funding, but they're there. Like, we just want people to go. Okay, so just the difference between the grants. So Masar, this organisation, are the biggest funders. So the grant is, as I've said, for everyone gets $1,000. You just have to fill out an application. The scholarship is means tested, can be up to $10,000, which is pretty much the whole like cost of the programme. But obviously you need to support, like it's like student finance, you can't just ask for that much money, you have to support your application. Okay, the application process. So we're like here, like this is like an information evening, potentially 2 years before you go, or 1 year. So there's like, it's a long process. Okay, so you enroll, you fill in like an initial application form, which are on that table. And then I'll go down this side first. So you complete Masar and online forms. So as with any Jewish programme, and Kadima as well, there's like a lot of documentation to fill out. It's a year of your life. So it's important that we have all of that. People seem to find it very difficult to fill it out, but they get there eventually. You complete the LJY-Netzer. So basically this is just all forms. Then you get a letter from Netzer saying, congratulations, your life's going to be the best year of, like, just, you're going to have the best year of your life, like, welcome to the programme. On the other side of things, you write like a little essay or like short thing about like why you want to go, what your motivations are. It's kind of, I mean, no one ever doesn't go, but it's just to kind of check, I guess, that you're not thinking it's not what it is. Then you have to get like a medical examination, just get cleared by the doctor, no different to any other programme we run. Then there are interviews. So it kind of depends what you're doing. So for Machon, there are interviews like with the head of Mahon, and he or she would say, if they interviewed you and thought, actually, this isn't for you, they would just be really honest and say, look, I think you're better suited to ETGAR, which is a more casual kind of learning but living program. Mahon's like very intense. And you have it's a really informal interview with the director of Shnat, just so he can get to know you, because obviously you're not going to meet him till you're signed away a year of your life and you're in Israel thinking, So it's just like a good port of call. We're the in-between people, really. Then, like, just before the end, I guess, people do this like the week before, but it's advisable to do it more than a week before. You get like a phone, so like SIM card that's going to work in Israel, although people don't seem to be that bothered about calling England when they're there. A visa, so to live in Israel, you need a visa. If you go and you don't have one, you just get automatic 3 months, and then it's a bit of a faff, but like it's fine, and obviously insurance. So that's like, that takes some time. By this point, you're about to go. Okay, obviously unsurprisingly, I'm the movement worker in charge of Shnat this year. It's just worth me saying, like, I may or may not be here next year doing this. So it may well be like that I do this info evening and then you're sitting here this time next year thinking, yeah, I want to go. But there's someone else talking. So it's just like, I can definitely help as much as I can, and then someone else will take over, but we're all here to answer questions. There's my email and phone number. It's a nice picture of people having fun. I think, oh yeah. So then this is just like a little trailer that a couple of years ago, I think, or maybe this year, 2 years ago, they made a trailer just 2 minutes before I should go on Shnat. So hopefully it's going to work. Is the sound going to work? We're not good. Okay. Let's hope.
Make it better.
You have to send sound on your laptop.
The sound's up to. It's quite quiet, isn't it?
Here I was,
Oh, no.
9 months in and just 72 hours of my Shnat journey remaining. Almost a breaking point. Brief memories after the ending.
Oh no, sorry. Right, let's try again. Oh.
Just tap one stop loss.
Right, let's try again. Just 2 minutes.
Here I was, 9 months in and just 72 hours of my Shnat journey remaining. Almost a breaking point. Brief memories often hit you, but they get fainter and fainter as time goes on. My epic journey over the last year is a blur of making new friends and new ideas. My journey is far from over.
This was made by an Australian that just led him. Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. So it's like, yeah. He was on Shnat, yeah.
Coming this fall and every fall, Shnat-Netzer gives you the opportunity of a lifetime. Join Tom and many others before him on a reform Zionist adventure of epic proportions. Sweet tale of friendship, Judaism, politics, and fun as you discover the land that is. Eretz Yisrael. Shnat-Netzer presents an honest
So, in a slightly, it's like okay, change that. Anyway, this is, I mean, that's, I guess, the presentation in terms of like the logistics of the program, what the program is. Hopefully, it explains it a bit more in a bit more detail. Miriam, do you want to just, or wanted to say anything for a few minutes?
I don't really have anything to add, just to say that on paper it obviously sounds like quite a lot, but also that it's so much more than what is on paper. That, you know, spending 4 months doing education or 2.5 months volunteering doesn't sound perhaps like the most substantial on paper when you can sum it up in so few words, but the experience is so much more than that. And so while we, for example, while we both chose to do Carmiel and we spent 2.5 months volunteering, and volunteering was only a proportion of what we did in the week, there was so much more to it than that. We got so much more out of it than just that. And like Tamara said, some of the best things that we did were actually not necessarily what was kind of the constructed program, but because we put so much more into it and took a lot more out of it, that it, you know,
What you mean?
yeah. And yeah, it's probably the only thing I would add to that. But obviously, if you have questions,
Okay, so I think
Good questions.
Sharon want to say hi.
Yeah.
We'll just call them for like a few minutes. So I think, or just one of them, Dawn, who's in Carmiel. So she's like there right now. Hopefully she'll be able to talk a tiny bit about like her experience so far. And then I'll say a few more things, and if you have any questions. Is it quite quiet? Okay, might not work. Hi, Dawn. Hello. Hi. Yeah, it is.
Yours is. Our camera doesn't work.
So you're just talking to.
Well, you can speak to me anyway.
Yeah, we can see you. So we're just basically doing information evening for like someone's parent and someone who might go in not this year but like the following year.
Okay.
So
To work.
I guess like you're there now, so we've just done a presentation on like how great it is. But do you want to just say like a little bit?
Can I just get my earphones?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. I'll be back in like 2 seconds.
Okay. So
Definitely understand why she does.
Dawn's, so at the moment there's 3 boys and 1 girl out there. Dawn's in Carmiel by herself, but she's with RFY, and like I think it's just a good example of like, even if there's only a few of you, how you can it just, the group just becomes a group. You don't go out there and think, oh my god, no one's from LJY. That doesn't, that thought never enters your head.
Relevant.
And also, it's why the group experience is so great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it used to be like way before we did it, there wasn't a group experience, and so you started on Schnat and you
Yes.
kind of didn't really have the opportunity to like bond as a group.
Yes.
And then we were the first year they did group experience, and it meant that we left our first month just like so gelled as a group that it was almost like we'd been on Schnat for 6 months,
Yes.
whereas we'd only been there for a few weeks. And so it meant that like even though we split up in different options, like all we wanted to do was spend time with each other across the
And
options.
you all work through now, do you?
So I don't,
No.
but they do,
Right.
yeah. Like we all stayed involved after
Yes.
for like years, and
Yes.
still are.
Hello.
It's really good.
See, I'm back.
Hi. So if you just want to say like a little piece about how you found it so far, what it's like being out there.
Okay. Well, I'll go from the beginning, I guess. So at the start, obviously quite nervous, but very excited. And yeah, so when we got to Jerusalem, it was all very, very nerve-wracking, very exciting. And everyone was lovely, so that really helped. And it was really, really, really exciting to meet new people from different stuff, which is
That's
a
like
great reason to go. And then on Latan, that was a group experience, so that was unbelievable, just getting to know everyone. Like it was just one of the best months I've ever had. And we lived on yeah, we were on the time, like in the little stand, which is in Woodlands. So that was just an experience of its own. And the group like really bonds. And like you told me before tomorrow, actually, you said like, oh, everything changes from the start. Like obviously you're nervous going in, and things do change. So it's very comforting to know that.
They were really nice.
Yes, and I'm Carmiel, and I'm the only LJY, which I was nervous about before I went on Snap, because I was like, what if I didn't know people so well? And like, it's just so open now. Like I'm getting on completely fine with the LJY. Like that's how well you get to know people. But yeah.
Cool. That's a good nutshell. Thank you.
Is there anything else? Like that's just how I've been feeling.
Yeah, no, that's good. Wait, I'll just see if anyone has questions. Do either of you have any questions for her? Don't feel like
No, thank
Okay.
you. It's very useful.
Cool. No, it was really useful. Thank you.
you.
I want to talk to you, so I'll just try and speak to you like tomorrow.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, cool. All right. Thank you, Dawn.
Are you sure it's not now? Because like I can tell you reasons why.
I think that was like a good persuasive piece. No, thank you. Like, if there are any questions from anyone generally, because also people have been watching it online, might sound weird, but true. Then like, don't worry about it. But I'll let you guys know if there is anything. But I'll call you tomorrow. Okay.
Okay, good. I'm on a date for tomorrow. I don't know where we're going, but we're having a movie night tomorrow night, so I'd say in between.
Yeah, that's fine. Just let me know, and if not, we can speak on Friday.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I'm glad you're like having fun.
Yeah, we're having a wrestling match right now, actually.
Classic. Okay, all right. I'll see you.
But yeah. Anyway, I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. There you go. That's the dream. They're there now. Yeah, I guess like that's Shnat in a nutshell. Nutshell. Obviously, any questions, let us know. And if there's still people there. Is there anything?
I mean, I think if you've been involved as we have, with the movement for so many years, I mean, frankly, I think it sells itself so well.
Yeah, that's good to know.
I think it really does, and I think really it's just getting, hopefully, if they go on to do the Europe tour.
Yeah.
And really, I mean, as you say, just sort of seeing the benefit of it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's enormous benefits
Yeah.
of it. I think you'd be hard pressed not to see it.
Yeah, so what really turned it around for our year group, there are 9 of us, which is like really big, like
nice.
really big, was like our leaders all did Shnat. And they just ran a session for us, and they were like, it's
Exactly.
But also Kayat's, like to put it into perspective, before we went on Kayat, there were 2 people that were basically committed to going on Shnat.
Yes.
it really changed everything.
And we went on Kayat, like I hadn't considered Shnat at all. It was just like not a thing that had ever factored into my mind.
Uni,
Yeah.
Personally, it was yours as well.
Yeah. But
Right.
I was only going to do a gap year if I was going to do Shnat, because to me the idea of having to plan a year by myself is like, what? Like,
Yes,
no
I
way.
agree.
I want to go on a program that's just like there and obviously amazing.
Also, as well, people you know, people you're comfortable with, a
Yeah.
movement that you've known since you were small.
Yeah.
Whereas I just wasn't going to do a gap year. Like it just
Right.
hadn't even factored. It was just a kind of given that I would finish school and just go straight to university, and that would be that. And it was just not even something that was ever talked about. Like I never just had the inkling to do it. It's basically the best thing ever. Even though I've been involved on camp since I was like 9.
Yes.
There was just something about Kayat that was just like there. And came back from Kayat, and everyone was basically like, "Ooh, maybe I'll consider Shnat." And I was still a bit like, was it? And then just something happened. I was just like, right, I just really want to do Shnat. And it, then all of us that were kind of considering it kind of sat down, and we had a conversation, and we were like, okay, like, are we thinking for the right reasons, or are we just kind of hungover from the fact that kites were so great and really we just want to be
Also,
back
joy
there.
was so great.
Exactly, all of that stuff. And then it kind of got closer to it, and obviously movement workers talking to us, and then we began applying for funding, and we actually realised that, yeah, we definitely want to do this. This is the right decision. When it was amazing, absolutely no regrets.
It's also like good to think about it earlier,
Yeah.
Because it gives you more
Exactly.
time.
Yeah. Like we were quite rushed because
Yeah.
by the time, certainly for me anyway, like I was very on the last minute cusp of like applying for funding and stuff like that, because
Right.
it wasn't even a last minute decision. Like within our group, someone in RSY signed up for the program 5 days before we were leaving.
Which
Like
is
that was obviously the definition of a last minute
really
decision.
unusual. No,
Yeah,
I wouldn't
like you don't do that, but as in like in a kind of
She had a great
normal, yeah, she did. But like in that normal like timeline of events, like I was still fairly last minute, particularly because I had to like discuss with my parents, and it was all like a very new
Also
decision.
as well, then you actually, I assume, have to get permission, do you, from the uni to hold your place open?
So it was with enough time just that I could apply deferred.
Because now I think it's much more common.
Yeah, as much.
Yeah, it's much more. The other thing I think is also worth mentioning is like people didn't. So in our year, like of our friends, not everyone did kayaks, and like it wasn't particularly.
Which I think is very different to how it's going to be now.
Yeah.
The whole kites program, I understand from John, is changing anyway.
Yeah.
It's great.
We had a big year still, but there were some of our friends that just like didn't even like. There were snatties like I don't need to say who, but like in the past few years who haven't led, as in they have just had a really big gap, and they just thought, you know what, I'm gonna go. And like what we said about one of our friends, like he just, I don't even know how you find it if you're not like, you know, from London or whatever, but he just came on the program.
That is pretty amazing.
It's a really unusual. Yeah, it's really unusual, but he just he'd never done anything. And I think like looking back now, I don't, you know, after like a week, I didn't even remember who it was. It made no difference. Like I started quite late in LJY, and it didn't make any difference to me.
No.
So I guess that's what. And yeah, in terms of what we're doing numbers wise, so like obviously there's a year before. There's the year that might go in September, October. They're like obviously a different group. There's your like Caroline and your year. Like we'll like this whole process will happen again next year. There'll be another info evening. Like we're talking to people. There's a lot of people who are like considering it. There's some people who are like not even sure about gap years, which is like we just feel like any gap year is really beneficial.
It's a process. And also as well, you've got to get on to kites first. It's one thing at a time, isn't it? Really.
When so much can change, like as it was with us. You know, even would have considered coming to tonight 2 years before. Like it's such a big decision anyway to think about now what you want to do at university when you're still 17 and
like
you really have not much of an idea. Let alone think about taking a year beforehand and committing. Like it's all just a lot at one time.
Also,
absolutely.
Just like the last thing it's worth saying is like, so Tom's like the kayaks person, and this is my, like obviously it's not my, LJY is my full-time job, but this is one of the things I do. But like anyone that's at all interested, lots of people watching, like I can come and chat, whatever, like just go for coffee in a much more casual way and just have a conversation about like if it is the right thing. Like we only want people to go if they want to go and if they think it's the right thing for them. Like we would never try and say it is.
No, saying to a sales job, is it?
No, exactly.
If you can't see the benefit of it,
then
that's fair enough. I mean, you can't, you know, I mean, it speaks for itself, really, doesn't it? It's incredible.
Yeah, that's it. But thank you very much, like, for coming.
Thank you.
And like, hopefully this isn't a scarily low number of people because everything changes. As I said, 2 people went in 2 years ago, and like, I think everyone was like, oh, 2 people, and they came back and they're just like, no, it's no. I mean, 9
is no reflection. Like our group, even though there were 9 of us, there was still another 15 RSY people, and then there were still people from Spain and Germany and America and Australia and also various other places.
Often those people come alone, so there was like 1 German, 2 Spaniards, and like I guess it's a bit of a different thing for them. But you know, they just come and they're like, yeah, no, it's like
but you know, keep going. Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you
very much, Tom. Nice to see you.
Can you stop this? Whatever it is.
Question shout out.
Yeah.
Where's the mouse? I've lost the mouse.
But thank you for putting it on anyway, because it was useful. I mean,
no,
I'm going to take it away and read it. We'll both read.
We're just glad that like.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
No, it's good.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you for coming. Maybe we just shut the laptop.